I like to put like.
Sorry, I'm not sure about that.
I didn't say it. My Alexa went off. That kind of scared me. I'm gonna quick mute my Alexa real quick. Welcome everybody to my little tier list video, I guess you could say, of the 2024 NASCAR Darlington Throwbacks that we are going to be seeing on track this weekend at Darlington. Or depending on when this video comes out, it could be after, because, you know, I suck at making videos. So last year I was going to make a throwback tier list video, but the thing was, I got it all done. I spent nearly 3 hours making it, and then, of course, I use HitFilm, and HitFilm is terrible at making long videos. So I upgraded to a new, faster, and better filming software, editing software. I use Filmora now, so I love it way better. It's leagues better. One thing I really love about Darlington Throwback Week is it's one of my favorite weeks of the year. Seeing all these teams come out with all these great throwback paint schemes, throwing back to the old days of NASCAR, throwing back to their team's history, their drivers' histories, and a lot of stuff like that. It's a great weekend, to say the least, and I really love it. Because a lot of teams sort of go that extra mile and create all these great schemes. Their creativity is put on display here with a lot of these throwbacks. I really love it. Every single year we see so many great throwbacks, from the great to the mid to the just Ricky Stenhouse 2021 Tide car. So I'm going to this year, I was going to do it last year, but I didn't do it last year because technical issues, do a tier list of all the throwbacks that we have this year. So as you see here, we got all 63 from the top 3 divisions, and the tier list, as you can see on the screen here. I'm gonna move a little bit because I don't know. I want to make sure I'm not blocking it. So, but I'm probably gonna end up blocking something. As you can see, we got all the 63 teams down there, and of course the tier list ranking from F tier all the way to S tier. So starting off with F tier, we're gonna start at the very bottom. These I like to call the crimes against graphic design. Schemes that are so abhorrently terrible to the point where, like, they'd be on the list of the worst schemes of the entire year, maybe the worst schemes of all time. And of course, you probably know my example for that, Ricky Stenhouse's 2021 Throwback, which is just a blue car with the Tide logo slapped on it. That's a crime against graphic design. Then we got D tier. I like to put some of the bad throwbacks here, which it's like, you're not going to be seeing many throwbacks in the sort of lower tiers, because a lot of these teams do a great job with their throwbacks. D tier are sort of the throwbacks that I just don't really like, whether it be like, I think, bad corporate throwbacks or just really, really bad team throwbacks. A lot of teams that change up the color palette drastically are put on that list. Then moving on to the C tier, these are sort of where we start with like some of the mediocre throwbacks. So I call it the mid throwbacks. So it's just those throwbacks that either just don't really click with me, or there's some problems with it. Like, I feel like there is such thing as a too recent throwback, which there are a couple on this list here. So I like to put a lot of the throwbacks that I feel like are too recent. Then we got B tier, which is sort of the start of the good throwbacks. I like to put some of the top corporate, like the better corporate throwbacks on here, and then some of the lower throwbacks that really don't click with me too well. Then we got A tier. Those are the great throwbacks. They did a really good job with those throwbacks. Throwbacks that I can recognize right away, and just some great throwbacks, but are just missing that little thing that's keeping it from S tier. And then of course S tier, those are the best throwbacks. My absolute favorites. A lot of the teams that go the extra mile with those throwbacks. I think a good example from last year would be Chase Elliott's throwback last year. Especially like throwbacks that I would consider, my personal opinion on what the throwback should have been, would definitely be on there as well. So one more thing, of course, before we get started with this throwback tier list, is one thing is I am very critical with a lot of these schemes. So I might be a little bit more nitpicky compared to like other people that sort of rate these throwbacks. So you'll see graphic design me in this video here. And of course, like I said, there are like some big rules when it comes to throwbacks. And sort of the biggest rules are, try to stick to the source material as best you can. Try not to change the colors too much. If you like mess up a throwback so bad like Harvick's scheme last year, that's breaking the rule. And then lastly, of course, have some sort of connection with the team or driver. Don't just take an old car and just mash it in. It has to have some connection. So those are sort of my rules there. So with that being said, I'm going to zoom back out move to the side a little bit so I'm not taking up the whole screen. And there we are. Here's all the 63 cars we got here from all top 3, and let's get right in to the list. Starting with Ross Chastain's Busch Light car for this year. Conveniently, I'm drinking Busch Light right now, so this one's okay. It's not the best throwback that Trackhouse has done, because last year's throwback and the 2023 throwback, those were really good throwbacks for Ross. And this one really isn't that bad. They actually managed to replicate the old Busch Light can design really good. They did a really good job with this throwback. I feel like Harvick might have run this throwback too, but I don't really know. But I feel like it mixed really good with it. It gives those old 2000s vibes, and I really like it. But in the scheme of like Ross's Trackhouse throwbacks, or even just Ross's throwbacks entirely since he's been in the Cup Series, this is definitely the worst of the bunch. Not saying it's bad. It's a really good throwback, but when your previous throwbacks were these, you really gotta keep up with that. Nobody's perfect. You can't just keep making perfect throwbacks year after year. It's like, it's not possible. It's still a really good scheme. So, that being said, I feel like it is the poster child of B tier. I think I'm gonna put that right in the B tier. It's a really good scheme. It's just like I said, it's one of those high-end corporate throwbacks. And I just really appreciate that. Moving on, just a little bit smaller because the picture I got on J-Ski was like blocked by the drivers and the teams. We got Austin throwback. This is actually the first RCR Next Gen throwback, which is pretty good. This is also the only one because Kyle Busch decided to be like a party pooper. And this is a throwback to Dale Earnhart's 50th anniversary Bass Pro Shops car from the 90s. This is a pretty good one. I really like it. Pretty cool to see this scheme, which we've seen before a couple times. But yeah, I love the gold car, really good. A big complaint that I know a lot of people have been talking about is the white number instead of the black number, which honestly, I really don't mind it as much as many others do. It's crazy how you think I would be most critical about the white number, but I really don't mind it as much. I would prefer it to be black, but honestly, I really don't mind it too much. I'm going to put it right in the A tier. If they made the number black, I would have put it in the S tier, but it's still a really good A tier car. Moving on to Josh Berry. Stewart Haas, like Tony Stewart and Stewart Haas, sort of wanted to focus on the theme this year with throwbacks, which is grassroots. And they did a really good job with this. They did a really good job with a lot of these. This is a throwback to Rodney Childers and his late model days at Greenville Pickens, and they did a really good job with that. They managed to replicate the scheme really well. So they even like added a lot of cool stuff, like cool like Easter eggs on here as well. Like they added like the South Carolina palm tree and moon that's on the South Carolina flag. They added that onto the logo as well. I just really like it. It's a really good scheme. It's really fresh, really good. This is probably the best Stewart Haas Cup throwback, so really good. Dare I say it's going to be an A tier because, again, it's not a car that I would immediately recognize because this is sort of more, like I said, a grassroots throwback. I really like it, but again, it's just something that I don't really connect with. It still is a fantastic throwback. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just like, I don't know. It's like, it focuses more on the grassroots thing, and I still like it. So, and I'm not saying A tier is a bad throwback. It's still going right into the A tier. And then, oh my gosh, this is probably the big kahuna of the cup throwbacks. After so long, we have been wanting this throwback for so many years, a Terry Labonte throwback, and we finally got it. And they went the extra mile. They went like they created the fonts. They made the font look like the Kellogg's font. They did everything. They managed to make the car look amazing with the forward number placement. Like, a lot of people like to blame like the lack of throwbacks on the forward number placement, how it messes up throwbacks. This is a good example on why that's false. That's just an excuse. Just improvise. It's a great throwback. And like, it's so great. My biggest complaint doesn't really affect the scheme that much. That's like the pretty bare hood, because you don't have corny on the hood, which, I mean, how do you replicate that with Hendrick cars? So, yeah, this right here, ladies and gentlemen, we got our first S-tier throwback of the year. So, that might actually be the best throwback in the Cup Series. So, I just really like it. It's so good. All right, moving on to Keselowski. So we got a throwback to the Castrol Supra car they ran during the All Japan Grand Touring Car Championship. And this one's pretty good. I know this is a pretty iconic Castrol throwback. Sort of iconic car for Castrol. But the thing is that I really hated how they revealed it. Because they teased that they could have possibly done a Casey Atwood throwback. which is a car I've been begging for so many years. They do, especially now they have Castrol in their pockets. They teased it. It's like, hey, there's a couple cars we could run, and the Casey Atwood car's there, and I was so happy, like, oh my gosh, we finally gonna get the Castrol GTX Casey Atwood car I've been wanting for so many years. Nope, I got hoodwinked. It's like that one scene of SpongeBob where Patchy's just tearing all SpongeBob stuff down. That's me right now with Brad. Don't trick me like that. It's still a good scheme though. I'm not saying this is like a D tier scheme or anything. It's still one of the better ones. I'm actually gonna put that right in the S tier. I know a lot of people really love this car. I think this car was in Gran Turismo. You could probably tell I didn't grow up with PlayStation. I was Nintendo and Xbox. Nowadays I'm just PC. So, yeah, it's still a great scheme. They did a really good job replicating it on the next gen. They did a great job. I think the only thing I would change would probably be making the number black, like on the old car. They did it on the roof, but like the sort of like the green 6 kind of clashes a little bit, kind of sticks out a little bit more. I guess they wanted to make it more of a reflective number, which I like the reflective numbers, but this is the one time I feel like, okay, let's not do a reflective number, let's keep it closer to the source material. So, still a great scheme though. Moving on to Corey LaJoie, the throwback to his K&N car, K&N Pro Series car. They did a pretty good job with this. They replicated the old number on there. They kept the design pretty good. And again, they changed the colors a little bit, but again, this is one of those times where it really doesn't affect the scheme too much. Definitely a great car on this list here, and is one I really appreciate. It's a great sort of homage to Corey LaJoie's beginning of his career, and I'm going to put that in the A tier. I'm going to put that behind, sort of at the bottom of the A tier at the moment, but it's probably not going to stay there for too long. All right, moving on to Chase Elliott's. A throwback to Dale Jr.'s 2014 National Guard car. This is a great scheme. However, I feel like Chase Elliott's cars from here on out are going to have the effect of the post-peak effect, which is sort of, they created the best possible scheme they could have ever created, and that was last year being the Bill Elliott Evercamp throwback. Was their best scheme they could have ever done. Which, it's sort of a double-edged sword, kind of. It's a great scheme, but at the same time, it's going to make all the other schemes from here on out, the other throwbacks, sort of kind of look inferior to it. And, like, it's still not a bad scheme. There is a couple things I would change, like out of all the sponsors you could have run for this race, like, Universe would probably be the last one I would think of, sort of match with this paint scheme. If I would choose, like, this would definitely be up there, but I probably would go with, like, Dale Jr.'s Amp Energy car, maybe. I think would be a better fit with the Universe colors. But it is still a really good scheme. I'm going to put that above. I'm going to put that right behind. Actually, I'm going to put that right in the top of the A tier. I think it's a good spot to put that. A really good year. I think Hendrick this year did a really good job with all their throwbacks, and I really appreciate that. Moving on, we actually have to jump all the way up to Briscoe now. Like, Gregson didn't run a throwback, Hamlin didn't run a throwback, all the Penske aren't running throwbacks. Just shame all around for all of them. Come on, guys. There's so many options you could have done. Briscoe, throwing back to his family's history with sprint cars. And this is a really good scheme. I feel like it just, I mean, it's really not as recognizable, but I mean, how do you kind of make a sprint car into a stock car, really? You could tell, like, they did the best they could with replicating this car, but I feel like there could have been a little bit more done to it. Like, for example, you could have had, like, the roof and the hood, like, gray, like the wing and the front. I feel like that could have been a thing that could change, because this kind of gives me vibes of, like, Almirola's scheme last year, which was throwing back to Dale Jr.'s 2001 Pepsi 400 car. This gives me those vibes, but it's still a really good scheme. I think it's pretty good. I feel like it's kind of basic. There could have been a lot more they could have done. So I'm actually going to put that in the B tier. Not a bad scheme. It's just a scheme that I feel like they could have done a little bit more with. Moving on to Kaz Gralla, throwing back to Parnelli Jones's 1969 Boss 302. Okay. I mean, like, they definitely did a good job replicating the car as best they could. Like, they had the number font. They probably replicated the colors really good, which you can't really tell because the reference photo is in grayscale. But yeah, this is a really good throwback. I think that they did a really good job. They replicated everything as best as they could. And this is good. This is a really good throwback. Dare I even say, this is actually a good S-tier throwback. I'm going to put that behind Keselowski. Because this is how you make a good throwback, guys. It's really not that hard. And then we move on to Martin Truex. I'm going to need to take a drink for this one. It's kind of weird how Truex's throwbacks as of recent has been so mediocre. And this is another example. This is a throwback to a throwback. So yeah, this is like our first ever double throwback. So, I mean, I appreciate this is actually throwing back to Truex's 2016 Southern 500 throwback car. This is history, guys. This is the first ever double throwback, I believe. I might be wrong, but at the same time, it's like, okay, there's so many other ideas they could have done. What I constantly keep bringing up is make a throwback to like Truex's Enterprise car he ran in 2004 in the Cup Series. Like, it would fit perfectly with the Auto Owners brand, pretty much. I think overall that would be a great throwback. So, I just ain't feeling it that much. I feel like it's not obscure. It fits Truex very good, but it's like, you're throwing back to like 5 years ago. Not even, that's 8 years ago. Oh my gosh. I thought 2016 was 5 years ago. Oh my gosh, I didn't realize how long it's been. So anyways, I guess you can say here, this is actually going to be the first C-tier throwback. I think Truex is sort of the poster child for C-tier throwbacks as of recent. Moving on. Oh my gosh, this one I'm disappointed with Bell. Last year you did a really good throwback. I think a lot of people were kind of confused why I put Bell's throwback in C-tier last year. I think the best way I can say it was, it's a great idea, but executed really bad. It's just they really didn't do a good job porting it to forward number placement, which was possible. I made a better one as my concept last year. So, yeah, anyways, this is still, I mean, you might be surprised to say that this is a throwback, but yes, this is a throwback, sort of paying homage to DeWalt's 100th anniversary. But come on! Really? My idea was take a throwback to Kenseth's $1 Million Challenge car he ran in 2002. That would have been a good fit since it sort of matches pretty good with the 100 Years logo, because that's what I thought of right away. Like, why couldn't they just do the $1 Million Challenge car? Sorry, Bell, you were at the very top of C tier last year, but you're going right in D tier. It's really not that. It's still a good scheme, but I mean, like, you could have ran this any other time. But why Darlington? Out of all the schemes, come on. All right, moving on to Harrison Burton. They love to do that. They do pretty good throwbacks since they have they're like the longest running team in NASCAR, and they went very far back. I think this is like something they ran like the 40s or something, or like the early 50s. Throwing back to like their very early days, and man, this is actually a pretty good one. Like, it's kind of obscure, but at the same time, it's obscure in a good way because it's like the very early days of Wood Brothers. They did a really good job, like, recreating the logos. They recreated the number font. And I love it when they change the number font and stuff and sort of make the logos look really good. This is a great scheme. I mean, it's kind of basic, but I mean, it's a pretty good throwback. I mean, it's like a throwback to, like, the very, very early days of NASCAR, and I really like it. So I'm going to put that in the A tier behind Elliott, but ahead of Barry. And then moving on, this one I really loved when I saw the teaser for it. William Byron throwing back to Gordon's 2009 car. Now, I like this car. This has sort of a personal feelings for it. Because I remember when I saw this car revealed in 2009 that they would be changing the Flames car that I grew up my entire life, I was blown away by this. Because I felt like this was an upgrade to the Flames car we have seen in the 2000s. And this is a great scheme. I really love it. And I am glad they actually chose to ran this one. One big scary thing when I saw this, especially this render right here, was they messed up the gradient on the render. But this is just a render thing, because we saw an actual picture of the real car, and they made the gradient exactly what it was on the original car. So yeah, it's going in S tier, baby. Right behind Larson, because Larson's a car that we've been waiting so many years for. Moving on to Michael McDowell. This is a weird one. This is a corporate throwback, and this Nightmare Five Nights at Freddy's like mascot they have on the side. I mean, don't get me wrong. I really like the old Long John Silver's logo. I really love that logo so much. But like, why this? A good example of what I would have run, for example, would be Martin Truex's Long John Silver's car. He ran in the Busch Series in 2004 because I think that was the first time they sponsored NASCAR. So I think that would have been a great throwback they could have ran. I'm glad you did a throwback, but like it's an all-white car with a bunch of decals on. This looks like something you came up with in like 10 minutes. I mean, it's not a crime against humanity, but still, it's like, okay. So I'm gonna put that in C tier. I'm glad he did something, but he could have done way better. So, like your teammate, Todd Gilliland, like, look at this! This is actually a better scheme. This is a throwing back to Todd Gilliland's late model days. And they did their homework. They did their homework pretty good. They had, like, they recreated the number font. They even added that little pattern. You might notice that little pattern on the inside. The DGR pattern. I like that. It's a great scheme. Yeah, they did a fantastic job with this. They recreated the car pretty good. It looks really good in the next gen. So, yeah, I'm going to put that in the A tier. I'm going to put that ahead of Harrison's car. I think, overall, it's a really good paint scheme. And then moving on to the last of the Stored Haas throwbacks in the Cup Series, you got Ryan Preece. Great scheme. I think it's thrown back to his modified days. They did a really good job recreating the car as best they could. Again, I actually really like it when, like, teams try to recreate schemes that are on other cars. It's kind of a coin flip if it's going to be a good one or a bad one. Like Briscoe's car was kind of a mid, but it's a pretty alright one. I think they did a really good job recreating it. I feel like they could have done a little bit more by having the United Rentals logo on the side sort of replicate the... It looks like they have two different shades of blue on the original car. They could have done that, but overall, pretty good scheme. I'm going to put that in the B tier as well. I think it's overall pretty good scheme. Now this one makes me irrationally angry. John Hunter Nemechek throwing back to Lee Petty. Like, it's not a bad scheme by any means, but the potential scheme you could have ran. Nemechek and 42, you could have done a Bell South car, and you didn't. Now, I know someone on Twitter told me that they're doing this to sort of celebrate the 75th anniversary of the Petty family in NASCAR. Like, okay. But they did a scheme very similar to this a few years ago. It's not bad, but at the same time, the Bell South car is right there. You could have done that, and you didn't. And I just noticed there's a... Oh, no, not... And I just noticed there's a little bit of a render issue. I hope that's a render issue, not on the final car, because, oh my gosh, it sticks out like a sore thumb. Oh my gosh, it's going at the bottom of B tier. Alright, moving on to Eric Jones's car. This one's alright, but I'm not really sure what it's throwing back to. If it's a throwback to a Richard Petty car, maybe, but I don't remember the last time I could think of a white Richard Petty car. This looks like more of a color-inverted variant of what they ran last year, because I'm getting some vibes of the black top that they had on last year's car. So, I mean, like, the one they ran at Dover is better than this one. That's just sad. And I'm going to put that one in, I'm going to say right, oh, nope, not Nate's here, but right in front of Nemechek's throwback in the B tier. Alright, moving on to Tyler Reddick. And this is a throwback to Tim Richmond. Okay, I really don't see the connection here, but, like, it's fine. Like, I can't even think of what the car they're throwing back to right now. This looks like an Apple, like an old Apple car or something. But, I mean, points for making a throwback, but, like, really? Like, I could have preferred, like, a Kurt Busch throwback or something. I don't know. This one just feels kind of weird. This is yet another one of those C-tier cars. I'm actually going to put that at the top of C-tier, but still, it's like, I don't see the connection here. So yeah, alright, moving on to Ricky Stenhouse, and oh my gosh, I can't believe that JTG actually made a good throwback, or actually one of the best throwbacks in the Cup Series. They have throwback to Mark Martin's 2004 Bud Shootout car. It's wild how far JTG has come from making the worst throwback in the history of Darlington Throwback Week to one of the best throwbacks this year. Oh my gosh, is this going right in the S tier. I think the only thing beating them out right now are the 2 Hendrick throwbacks. So, great job, JTD. You finally listened. And I feel like this is sort of giving me an opportunity because, like, a lot of the craft cars that they ran in the 2000s, which they ran a lot of, that's an untapped market of, like, throwback potential. So, alright, moving on to Alex Bowman, the last of the Hendrick Cup throwbacks. And this one's pretty good. Throwback to Jimmy Johnson's original car. It's a car that we've seen already with, like, the Lowe's branding, but this one's still pretty good. They did a pretty good job replicating the car as best they could. And this one's really good. I could have preferred a more original car, like I predicted or sort of had an idea for doing Jimmy Johnson's 2010 car, sort of celebrate his 5 championships in a row. That would have been a great idea for a throwback, but this one's still pretty good. I'm actually going to put that in the A tier as well. So right now, Hendrick right now is dominating the throwbacks, and they did a really good job this year. They went all out on their throwbacks, and I really love it. Then we gotta move all the way up to Zane Smith for our next one. This is apparently a Dave Marcus throwback, but I could have sworn this was a Bobby Isaac throwback, because I feel like this screams more Bobby Isaac. But nope, it's Dave Marcus, apparently. But I don't care what the name rail says. This is a Bobby Isaac throwback to me, and I really love it. It looks really good. They did a really good job with this one. They replicated the old number font. They did a really good job sort of porting that old 70s car design really well to the next gen. I think it's overall a really good car. So, yeah, we're going to put that in. I'm going to put that right about there. I think right in the middle of A tier. I think it's a great place to put it. All right, moving on to Carson Nozavar's throwback. I think a throwback to some like an old-fashioned police car. Throwing back to sort of having it sponsored by the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund. This is a pretty alright throwback. I mean, it's not really NASCAR themed, but it's still a nice throwback to cars in general. Throwback to old-time police cars. I just noticed they have like a little red circle on the roof, sort of Easter egg to the old sirens they had. So, I mean, it's not the best throwback, but it's still a pretty good one. I'm actually going to put that in, I'm going to say, right in between the Swordhouse throwbacks, I think is a good place to put it. Pretty good. And then lastly, for the Cup cars, we have Daniel Suarez throwing back to, I believe, Adrian Hernandez, I believe? Or Adrian Fernandez. And then say, I don't have any notes, I'm just winging it. Throwing back to an IndyCar, which this is actually a pretty interesting idea. Like, you don't really see too many IndyCar throwbacks these days. I mean, there are a couple we see from time to time, but this is one of those times where they did a really good job with it. I mean, like, they have, like, the 2000s Quaker State logo I grew up with. Like, I like this car. They even recreated the number font really good. Overall, yeah, this is a great throwback. I mean, it's not better than the one they did last year because it was more NASCAR themed, but, I mean, like, it's a pretty good throwback, both with Quaker State and also, like, Hispanic drivers, since Fernandez was also a Mexican driver, just like Suarez. So, I think it's got some great connections to it with both the driver and the sponsor. And so, yeah, that's actually going to go right at the top of A tier, I think is a great place to put it. So, really good job. And that's it for the Cup throwbacks. So we got a quick swap folders. I have like different folders for all the throwbacks. This was a dumb idea. Alright, so moving on to the Xfinity Series, and Cole Custer throwing back to Johnny Sauter's yellow freight car, yellow transit car. They did a really good job with this one, because I thought last year they couldn't really top the Jason Leffler throwback they did, but this is a pretty good one too. It sticks out. I could recognize it right away. Like, I love the tiger stripes on this car. It looks so great. Throwback to the team, because this is an old Haas car before Stewart took ownership of the team. So this is a great start. We're already off to a great start. That's actually going right in the S tier. I think right in the middle of S tier. I think it's a great spot to put that. All right, moving on to Patrick Emmerling throwing back to Jan Leedy's Modifieds. So, this is a pretty nice one. I think overall they did a really good job replicating the scheme, replicating the number font. That I thought that looked like an Illuminati for a second right there. I think this is overall just a fantastic scheme. They did a really good job. They did their homework. Yeah, this is a pretty alright one. I think that's a great spot to put it into the bottom of the A tier. I think it's a great place to put it. I mean, like, it's still a great throwback. Paying homage to the team in general. Alright, moving on to Dawson Cram, I believe. Throwing back to Paul Wireman. Okay, like, it's not someone I'm familiar with, and I don't really have a reference image, but, I mean, this scheme's alright, but without, like, a reference image to sort of compare it with, this just looks like a generic car, like a generic scheme they could run next week, but it's still a great scheme nonetheless. So I think putting that in a B tier, I think is a great place to put it. Right in between the two legacy cars, I think is a good place to put it, because that Nemechek throwback just makes me so angry. Alright, moving on to Justin Allgaier. I think the downfall of Justin Allgaier throwbacks really needs to be studied, because we started the decade off with some bangers, and now we're just doing corporate throwbacks. Like, this is a throwback to the old Brandt's cars, or trucks, I don't know, that they had in the 50s. I mean, it's not a bad scheme, but it's a corporate throwback. Like, come on. There's so much potential. Like, you're literally running for a team with the Earnhardt name. That's an infinite gold mine of ideas. So, yeah, this one's going. I'm actually going to put that at the top of the C tier. So, not bad, but, like, come on, man. You could have done so much better with this. Alright, moving on to Sammy Smith, throwing back to Mike Brooks, Knoxville track champion, which I believe is, was owned by the Annette family, I believe. So, yeah, so it makes sense. It fits with, sort of fits with the Annette family, which owns Pilot Flying J, which is a sponsor for the team. So, let's see, right there, I think. Middle B tier. I think it's a great place to put that. Alright, moving on to Brandon Jones. I'm actually surprised they did a throwback to with Brandon Jones this year. Throwing back to Dale Jr.'s 2018 car from Richmond. Like, okay. They did a good job. They recreated the number font pretty good. They recreated the car pretty good. But at the same time, it's like, really? Throwback to 2018? And, like, the potential here, I mean, like, wow, I wonder if Dale Jr. ran a scheme with Menard as a sponsor or something. That could have been a great idea. But nope, we have to do a Hellman's throwback. But it's still a pretty good scheme. I feel like there's sort of a limit to what I feel like is too recent for a throwback. And this is right on that line. It's only been 6 years, man. So I'm going to put that right about here. Probably there. Would be a good place to put that. It's probably second to last in the B tier because I am not moving Nemechek out from the bottom spot. Alright, moving on to this one I think was announced recently. Haley Deegan throwing back to Dale Earnhardt's Wrangler car. It's a great scheme. The thing is, we see the Wrangler car every single year. I feel like we see this scheme so often. This is probably the most thrown back to car along with like the Penske car that like Logano did a throwback to last year. Like, this is still a great scheme. They actually did a really good job. Even putting like, instead of like doing the Wrangler horse like they had in the old car, they did the Ford Mustang horse. I feel like that's a great touch. And they did a great job. They recreated the font as best they could. It's a great car, but we see this car all the freaking time. So yeah, I'm actually going to put that right near the top of the A tier. I feel like if this was more unique, this would definitely be S tier. But we see this car so often. It's just after a while, it kind of loses its charm. So, yeah. Moving on to Sheldon Creed. Now, this is a good throwback. This just reeks of a Toyota car. Like a Toyota throwback. They did a really good job with this one. I think this is of course a throwback to like Toyota's off-roading car. And like we've seen this scheme before, but I feel like I like this car. It looks great. I even recreated this car for the YTRSS once. Again, a car that we've seen multiple times before, but I still like it. I'm actually gonna put that at the very top of the B tier. I think it's a good place to put that. But again, scheme we've seen before, but it's not as agonizing as like the Wrangler car, because it's still a scheme that is still great to see from time to time. It's like fast food. It's great every once in a while, but it's not great every single day. Alright, we only got half the freaking RCR cars this year running throwbacks, and they're both kind of okay. This is Austin Hill. Again, the 21 RCR car has a lot of history, and they just go with a corporate throwback. I mean, it's not a bad scheme, it's a throwback, but, like, come on. They did a half job with it. Like, they put the old logo on the hood, Like, they put the old logo on the hood, but not on the side. What's up with that? It's still a pretty alright scheme. It's just a corporate throwback. So I think I'm gonna put it at the top of the seats here. I think it's a great place to put it. I mean, come on. RCR, like Childress, it's like so much history with that team. They just go with a corporate throwback again. Alright, moving on to Jeb Burton. I can tell this is a throwback, but I can't really put my finger on what it's throwing back to. This looks like a throwback we've seen before. I might put an editor's note if I figure out what this is supposed to be a throwback to. I think it's supposed to be a throwback to Ward Burton, but I'm not really sure. But still is a great scheme overall. But one thing I noticed was, I think it was Burton that ran a car at Talladega that would have been a great Todd Bodine throwback. That would have been a great car that could have ran for Darlington. But this is still a pretty alright scheme. I think I'm going to put that right. I feel like that's a great spot to put with the rest of the C tier, I think, overall. It's a scheme that I can't really put my finger on what it's supposed to be thrown back to, and I feel like we've seen it before. Alright, moving on. Oh, man. Blaine Perkins throwing back to Cale Yarbrough, the Hardee's car he ran in the late 80s, I believe. And they went the extra mile, like, recreating all the old logos really well. Like I love that Eddington logo, and I love the Daly logo, the Ryan Daly Designs logo. How well they recreated it, really good. Great job for Blake. I also realized they had like the little Ford on the B pillar sort of represent the Olds logo that they had in the B pillar on the old Oldsmobile cars. And yeah, this is a really good throwback, because you could tell, like, Ryan Daly Designs or whatever. Yeah, you could tell, like, an up-and-comer throwback designer definitely made this. And I could tell. Yeah, this right here, they went that extra mile. It's going right up into the S tier. I think right behind the Hendrick throwbacks. They went the extra mile. They did all this creativity, and I think overall this is a fantastic throwback, to say the least. Alright, moving on to Retzclaff. I don't know if I said it right. But yeah, throwing back to Harry Gant. And again, this is a scheme that we see a lot from time to time, but I think it's just enough to the point where I'm not sick and tired of it. And this is a really good one. They even had like the little bandit on the front. I think overall, this is just a great throwback and such a great tribute to Harry Gant. Which, may I like to point out, Harry Gant is aging like a fine wine. He does not look that old. I think he's in like his 70s or 80s, and he still looks like he's in his 50s. And that's just great job. He is doing great on the aging thing. And I remember seeing this car, the show car at Trackhouse. It's really cool. Yeah, this is actually another S tier. I'm putting that right at the bottom, but still, overall, fantastic scheme. The Xfinity cars are actually doing better than the Cup cars this year. Who would have thought? Alright, next up is Chad Fincham throwing back to Kevin Harvick. When I first I thought this was a fictional one. But no, apparently they're actually running this throwback, and they did a really good job. They recreated the fonts. I love the GM thing they recreated. It's like I was making a joke last year that the Harvick throwbacks they ran last year were better than Harvick's actual throwback, and I just found that hilarious. And this year they did a great job. Again, they did their homework, and they did a really good job recreating it as best they could. Up to the S tier. Fantastic, man. Moving on to Ryan Sieg throwing back to his late model car. And yeah, they did the best they could. There was another one of those grassroots ideas they did. They even recreated the logo pretty good. I love that logo. But one thing I like to point out with this is that this car really reminds me of the car that was in Final Destination that started the whole track massacre. Good times. That would have been funny. So yeah, next year, anyone with the 6 or a car that has a 6, instead of doing a Days of Thunder throwback, do a throwback to the freaking Final Destination car. Everyone would find that funny. But regardless, I think a good place to put that is in the... I want to put that probably B tier. Not a bad scheme, but still better than the Nemechek car, because that one makes me angry. Alright, moving on to Leland Honeyman Jr. throwing back to Kyle Petty's mellow yellow car. This is always a great one to see. I still prefer the one Larson ran in the inaugural year of the throwbacks, but this is still a pretty good one too. They recreated the font as best they could. Like, I love that font really good. They recreated the logo really good. So, yeah. This is still a fantastic car. I feel like if it was a more unique throwback, I'd definitely be putting that in the S tier. But this is still a fantastic A tier throwback. Probably right there, because this is one car that I just still really adore. Anyway, speaking of Days of Thunder throwbacks, we got one right here for Ryan Ellis. Throwing back to the Cole Trickle City Chevrolet car. I've noticed that Alpha Prime does a really good job with their Darlington throwbacks. And yeah, this is it. This is another really good one. They recreated the car really good. They recreated the number font. And I feel like they actually did a better job with this than Byron's variant that they ran in 2019, I guess. And I think the best part about this entire thing is that the logo, their team logo on the front of the car is a replica of the Days of Thunder logo. And I just find that really good. That's going to be in the S tier. I think right behind Perkins throwback. I think it's a great place to put that. And now we move on to Brendan Poole's car. Oh my gosh, this one makes me so happy on a personal level because I love the Hot Wheels car so freaking much. They recreated the Petty logo. I mean, it's not the Petty logo from that era, but still. Oh my gosh. Great job all the way, Alpha Prime. They recreated this car really good. Man, they even recreated the number font. They recreated the logo pretty good. This is the perfect example of a fantastic throwback. So yeah, I'm actually, dare I even say, I'm actually going to put that right in between the two Hendrick throwbacks in S tier. So I think this is probably my favorite of the Xfinity throwbacks altogether, because this is just a throwback that I really adore. Alright, moving on to Parker Klingerman. This is throwing back to a truck that the owner drove in the 90s at Nashville Fairgrounds, I believe. Like, it's a car that I can tell it's a throwback, but I can't really tell what it's a throwback to. I like this car. It looks really good, but it still resembles a throwback, but I can't really tell what it is to. So, yeah, put it in C tier. Still pretty alright, but I feel like it's kind of obscure. I still appreciate how good this game is. It still looks pretty crisp, but it's still a car that I feel like they could easily run next week and nobody would really bat an eye. Alright, moving on to Jeremy Clements. He always has pretty good throwbacks. And this year they did a throwback to Robert Presley's Alliance car. And I find this really funny how it's not the same sponsor, but it has the exact same name. And they actually managed to recreate the car really, really good with the car. And they did a really good job. They did a good job. This car looks super good in the modern Xfinity. And I feel like the only thing that would make this car better if they had the red interior. But I feel like they can't really do that due to budgetary reasons or like Xfinity regulations. So, yeah, I'm putting that in the A tier. I think right there. I think is a good place to put that. Right in the middle of the A tier. Moving on, this is apparently Chandler Smith's throwback, or the only image I could find to it. This is supposed to be a throwback to his late model days. But, again, this is literally the only picture I could find of this car right now. So I guess we have to wait till this car hits the track before we can see what this car actually looks like. So, I mean, it looks alright. But, again, this looks like a car that could easily run next week. So, I guess I'll just put that right in at the lower C tier, I guess you could say. I still need to see an actual picture of the whole car before I can actually give it an honest rating. So, yeah. Alright, moving on to Josh Bilicki with a Circle B car, throwing back to Justin Allgaier's the original Circle B car. This is actually pretty good. They did a really good job recreating the car. Even getting Brandt on the car, which was on the car they had back at 2014 at H-Scott. They even recreated the H-Scott motor font, like the number font, pretty good. And I'm not sure if this is supposed to be a Mattel throwback, like a throwback to Mattel. I don't know. It's still a fantastic scheme. Great job, guys. I'm going to put you right in the A tier. I think it's a great place to put it. I think overall this is a pretty good throwback. And then we move on to Shane Van Gisbergen, throwing back to Marcus Ambrose, another driver from Down Under. And yeah, they did a great job. This right here is probably my favorite, one of my other favorite Xfinity throwbacks. Still not better than the Brendan Poole car, but man, they went the extra mile with it. And I think this is Colleague's only throwback this year. And they knocked it out of the park. Quality over quantity, I guess. Man, oh man. Right in the S tier. Right behind the Hendrick Throwbacks and the pool car. And then lastly, for the Xfinities, we got Riley Herbst thrown back to his family's off-roading team. And they did a pretty alright job. I think the only thing I would change is it looks like on the truck there's a little circle around the number, and on the throwback they don't have it. So I say if you add that little circle, this car would have been pretty alright. I mean, this scheme's still pretty good. It's kind of up there with the rest of the Storehouse Throwbacks. I think putting that right with Briscoe's Throwback, I think is a great place to put that. And there's going to be it for the Xfinity Throwbacks, and then we just got 16 more of the truck Throwbacks left. So let's see how the truck Throwbacks stand up when it comes to how they rank with the rest of the ranking. So starting off with Nick Sanchez, sort of paying a celebration to the 20th anniversary of the Drive for Diversity program in NASCAR, and I can't really tell what they're throwing back to. If it's like throwing back to Sanchez, or throwing back to the team, or just throwing back to the Drive for Diversity or something. Like, I can tell it's the throwback, but I can't really tell what to throw back to. Again, this just looks like something they could easily run at next week, so I'm going to put that in the C tier, I think, right about... probably right in front of Truex, so still not a bad scheme. It's just I can't really tell what it's throwing back to. Yeah. Alright, moving on to Dean Thompson, throwing back to Ryan Partridge and Irwindale, which, if we need a track in Southern California while all clubs getting that pointless reconfig, Irwindale. There you go. Like, I can tell it's a throwback, but I can't really put my finger on it. Like, I probably need like a reference picture to sort of figure out what it's throwing back to. But I will give it credit that it's slightly better than the Red Horse Throwbacks, or the Dark Horse, I don't remember what it was, Red Horse Throwbacks that they did last year. So, yeah, probably, I'm going to say right in the C tier. I think it's a great place to put that overall. I think we're going to be doing a lot of the Tricon cars back-to-back. And Corey Heim's got a pretty solid throwback to Cale Yarborough's Southern 500 win in 1974. Again, fantastic scheme. They did a really good job with this one. I think Corey Heim does a pretty good job with his throwbacks. I mean, they're kind of middle ground, but still, overall, pretty good scheme. Paying tribute to Cale Yarborough, which I'm surprised there isn't really that many Cale Yarborough cars. I think the only other one that we saw was Perkins. I'm gonna put that right about there. I think I'm gonna put that ahead of Cram's car. I think it's a pretty good place to put that. Overall, pretty good scheme. And we got Tanner Gray throwing back to his 2018 Pro Stock Championship when he was in the drag scene, I guess. And again, pretty alright scheme. I thought at first this wasn't a throwback, but apparently it is. So again, this is a throwback. I probably need to see a reference pic to sort of understand what it's supposed to be. I do appreciate they recreated the number font. So overall, yeah, I like the colors too. So I'm actually going to put that right behind Corey Heim. I think it's a great place to put that. And then to round out the Tricon cars, we got probably my favorite of the bunch, Taylor Gray. Throwing back. I was just thinking, like, wait, didn't I just do Taylor Gray? No, that's Tanner Gray. This is Taylor Gray throwing back to Mark Green's Superflow car from the 2000s. I like it. Pretty good scheme. I do like the car really good. They did a really good job recreating the Exxon Superflow logos on here. But the thing is, you got the colors. I feel like doing a Bill Sedgwick throwback with like the Sears Die Hard spot, that could have been a great throwback to get done with, since it matches the number and everything. Come on, man. I mean, it's still a great scheme. Like, it's still A tier. Like, right about, I want to say, I actually put that ahead of Deegan. I think is a great place to put that, because I could recognize what it is, and I really like this car. So, but you had different potential, I'm just saying. Alright, moving on to Tyler Ankrum. Another Days of Thunder throwback. Again, great scheme. They actually did a pretty good job recreating the car. Really good, and I like it. So, I think it's pretty solid. Yeah, I'm actually going to put that, right at the bottom of the A tier. I think it's a great place to put that. So, yeah. Alright, moving on to Christian X throwing back to Brownie King. That's not a nickname. That was his actual freaking name. I'm not really sure who this was, but I think he might have been a star in the convertible series. They did a really good job recreating the car the best they could on the truck. I mean, yeah, I think it's pretty much on the same level as the Wood Brothers throwback, but I'm probably gonna put that right. I'm trying to figure out. Sometimes it takes me a second to figure out where I want to put this. I think right about there in the B tier. I think is a great place to put it. All right, Lawless Allen throwing back to Ricky Schlick. I like the car. It looks pretty. They even recreated the number font pretty good, which is supposed to be the Hendrick number font. But yeah, I think it's a pretty alright scheme. I mean, it's kind of obscure, but I guess it's sort of a grassroots throwback, and I kind of appreciate that. I'm going to put that, I think, right smack dab in the middle of the B tier, sort of middle back of the B tier. I think it's a great place to put that. And then my hat fell off because I'm so happy. Holy cow! Throwing back to Stacy Compton's RC car, which I think is probably the best 90s truck scheme we ever had. And they went the extra mile. They recreated the car to a T. They changed the number font. They created the logo to represent the Royal Crown logo at the time. This car, like, when I saw it, like, I could tell. I immediately recognized it right away. It is so freaking good. Oh my gosh. It's going in the S tier. It's right there. This is probably, I think, my favorite truck throwback we got. So, yeah, this is just... I just want to bash my desk, but I don't want to spill my beer. Oh my gosh, man. It's beautiful. I want to keep looking at it, but we got to move on. All right. Then we got Bailey Curry throwing back to Chuck Efaw. Yeah. Another grassroots throwback, I guess. So, I appreciate that they did. I mean, it looks really good. Another obscure throwback, but, I mean, it matches up with the rest of the grassroots cars. So, I'm actually going to put that right about... I'm going to put that ahead of Briscoe and Smith. Because I think the scheme looks pretty. So, all right. Moving on to Daniel Dye throwing back to Kyle Petty's 1989 Pete car. This is great. It looks really good. It's a Pete car, so they recreated the car with they created the other Pete car. The only thing I'd change would be changing the number font to match the Sabco font. I feel like would have been a great touch. But yeah, overall I think it looks really good. I'm actually gonna put that in the A tier. I think it's a great place to put that. And then we got Thad Moffitt throwing back to the 25th anniversary Petty car, or STP 25th anniversary with the scheme. So yeah, it's a great car. I feel like this would have been better on Eric Jones last year, but yeah, I think this looks pretty good overall. And then you got a bunch of like names in the back for all the people that pre-ordered. You might even recognize one of the names on there. So yeah, this one, I'm gonna put my bias for the fact I pre-ordered this scheme and have my name on there. So I'm gonna put my bias away, but still, great scheme. I'm gonna put that right behind Dye in the A tier. Moving on to Stort Friesen, or Friesen, I still have no idea what that name's supposed to be. But throwing back to Jimmy Johnson's Coke 600 2010 car. Okay. Again, there's really no connection, but I do appreciate that they went the extra mile recreating the car as best they could, changing the number font and the logo. You made a really good A tier car. I think right about there. Good place to put it. All right, then we got Spencer Boy throwing back to Buck Baker. I guess this looks pretty cool. I love these old 40s and 50s cars on modern schemes sometimes. And I think they chose this because this car right here is 76 years ago. And their number is 76. So, makes sense. Even though they named the number 76 because 1776. But, hey, Freedom America. Yeah, I love it when they pay homage to 7076, unless you're Alex Jones making your game 1776 on Steam, just like a hour-long Contra ripoff. I am getting off topic. Oh my gosh, I'm done. I'm putting that right about there. I'm putting that ahead of that. I'm losing track. I'm talking about Alex Jones, the freaking Darlington throwback video. I'm losing it. I've been doing this for over an hour. All right, Matt Crafton throwing back to supposedly his original Menards car, but that's not even true. This is his car he ran in the 2008 era. I remember when he was at the Menards in my hometown and got my autograph. I think I still have it. I'm gonna go see if I still have it. I remember just seeing it a couple days ago. Find it. Find it. There it is. There it is. My Matt Crafton hero card from like 2007. So yeah, it gives me vibes to that, but that's not even the freaking right car. I mean, okay, it's not a bad scheme, but this looks like the same scheme they run in the modern day. And also, I just realized the freaking swoosh covers the number. I'm like, the second A, why does it go behind that but go in front of that? It makes no sense. It makes no sense. D tier. Oh my gosh. Finally, we get our second D tier. Because this just looks, I can't even tell this is supposed to be a throwback. This looks like the regular car they run. Sorry if this is supposed to be a throwback. Alright, and then lastly, we have Jack Wood throwing back to Tim Flock, another old time car. And I feel like Ellie Productions is going to be really happy to see a Hudson Hornet car throwing back. Even though this is not the Hudson Hornet, but still overall pretty good. I love the old like pale blue, and they recreated the number font really good. It's the 91. And I'm not sure if they're going to actually pay homage to Jocko Flocko, but I do appreciate the monkey on there. Sort of paying reference to that. But I'd say just have some sort of Jocko Flocko reference. I don't even know if that's his freaking name. I'm losing my sanity here. So yeah, I think it's overall a really good car. I'm going to put that right in the A tier. So yeah, I'm going to maybe do a couple last minute adjustments real quick. I'm actually going to move the Jeremy Clements car right about here. So yeah, and that is my throwback list. So we have 2 bad ones, a couple mids, a couple goods, a decent amount of greats, and then we got our list of S tiers. So now that we've seen all the throwbacks, I'm going to quick do some adjustments. For starters, I'm going to move the Kaz Grala car down to the A tier. Move that right about here. I mean, like, it's still a pretty good scheme, but again, kind of obscure, I guess you could say. So I'll quick go over, of course, my S tier cars that I just appreciate the most. We got 31 in the Xfinity, 35 in the Xfinity as well. Kozlowski 6, thrown back to the supercar. Cole Custer thrown back to the Johnny Sauter car, I believe. I don't even know if that was Johnny Sauter car. JT Daugherty, great job. Finally making an actual good throwback for once. Throwing back to Mark Martin. Then we got the Alpha Prime car, starting with Ryan Ellis, throwing back to the Days of Thunder car. Blaine Perkins with a great Kelly Yarbrough throwback. Shane Van Gisbergen, great job throwing back to Marcus Ambrose. Then we got the Stacey Compton throwback. William Byron's 2009 Gordon throwback. Brennan Poole's Kyle Petty throwback. I love the Hot Wheels card. And then congratulations to Kyle Larson with his Kellogg's throwback with the absolute best throwback of the year. And shame on you, Christopher Bell, for having the worst throwback of the year, even though it's not really a throwback. But I do appreciate you guys at the very least attempting to do something different. So that's my list. I'm gonna move my so you can see the full list right there. So yeah. Gosh, I've been talking for like hour 15 minutes. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I finally made a video in 2024. So yeah. Anyways, I was talking about Ellie, so here's my surprise. Zoom in. Zoom in. That's right. You're gonna dial down these nuts, Ellie. Dial down these nuts. These nuts.